to Ditch the Nerves, where you keep calm and lead on. I am Madhurantika, your host for today's episode of Ditch the Nerves. Today we are joined by distinguished Toastmaster Gauri Seshadri, a global leader in Toastmasters whose journey began with overcoming her own fears of speaking up. From her first district leadership role as area governor for the term 2011-2012, she has continued in serving in top international leadership roles and is currently the first vice president of Toastmasters International. Gauri's story is a powerful example how small acts of courage can create extraordinary impact, and I'm sure we have loads to learn from her. Let's get started. Thank you, Gauri, for joining us today. We are really excited to have you with us on this episode of Ditch the Nerves.
Thank you for having me, and hello, District 91.
Let's hear from you your compelling leadership arc in Toastmasters, starting from the club level to the area, to the region and international levels. If you could share with us a story and specifically talk about what was the trigger every time you made the decision to go to the next level.
Now, when you see my profile, people see a lot of different roles, and it can sound very planned, but it really wasn't, Madhu. In 2010, I believe I just moved back to India after being away in the United States for more than a decade, and I was readjusting. Starting over socially in many ways. I was just looking to make friends again, and a very senior Toastmaster who was an area governor at that time, those were the days when we had governor, suggested that I take on the assistant area governor role and said it was a great way to make friends. And so I took up the role mainly to meet people, build connections. But by the end of that year, I had learned a lot. I enjoyed myself, and most importantly, I think I found myself very curious, not about the next title, but what about the next role might teach me about Toastmasters, about working with different people, and about myself as well, because I was picking up skill sets in every role. So each role that I've taken on has stretched me in very different ways, new skills, new perspectives, bigger responsibility. The hardest part was never whether I was capable enough or whether, I was ready and my life was in balance and I could take on the leadership role. Honestly, your priorities are never there. You're never going to be 100% ready. For me, the hardest part was dealing with my own self-doubts. Looking into the mirror and saying, Gauri, can you do this? Or yes, I can do this, so all those inner voices coming into play. Like I said before, I don't think we ever feel fully ready. I certainly didn't, but I still decided to step forward. So for me, when people talk about small acts of courage, this is about what it looks for me, right? Saying yes before having it all figured out, and trusting that you will grow into the role as you go, because there's a great support system that we have here in Toastmasters. And I'm glad I said yes to the opportunities that came my way.
Fantastic, Gauri. Indeed, an incredible journey that you have had. While it sounds incredible, I'm sure there were a lot of hiccups on the way. And we do tend to think and worry about those hurdles that we envisage might come even before they come. What were some of the strategies you adopted to overcome those hurdles?
I don't think there's ever an ideal or perfect strategy. For me, I think the definition of leadership is problem solving in certain ways. But for me, problem solving as a leader usually starts before the problem. It starts with the people that you're leading, right? So I've learned that if you take time to understand your team, their culture, what motivates them, their strengths, even their constraints or a bit of their weaknesses, half the problems either don't arise or become much more easier to handle. You can align their goals to the project's goals, to the team's goals, to the organization's goals, not just in Toastmasters. I think this has worked for me at work also brilliantly. I call it aligning their why to the bigger why. sort of thing, right? So when you know what makes people tick, you can align those individual goals to the team goals and the team goals to the organization goals. And that alignment itself does a lot of heavy lifting. And so once that foundation is there, my approach is fairly simple. I stick to the basics. What is the purpose? What are the boundaries? What actually needs to get done out here, right? And then I try to simplify the complex. If something feels overwhelming, it usually means we are mixing too many issues together. So I truly believe that most leadership problems are people problem first and then clarity problems second. So understand your people and get the communication right to get the proper alignment and simplify the problems. You don't need complicated strategies to do that.
Thanks, Gauri. I'm going to take that with me. Align their why to the bigger why. I think that's very beautifully said. And as you said rightly, as a leader, you assess the problem, you foresee the problem before it comes, and that really helps, gives you the time to adjust. As leaders, we always know we have to take the big decisions, big calls, but sometimes is it also about taking small decisions, day-to-day decisions? Is that also something that you came across, and what were the impact of some of those smaller decisions?
So I don't think most leadership decisions feel big when you are making them. I think, like you rightly said, they usually show up as everyday choices: what to prioritize, what to say yes to, what to slow down, and sometimes what to let go of. So when I'm making those decisions, whether it's big or small, I tend to focus on a couple of things, Madhu. First is, what is the impact on the people involved, on the work, on the decisions? Am I fixing the problem for now, or am I looking, at it from a broader lens, broader perspective? Second, what is the return? Not so much in a financial sense, but in terms of effort, in terms of energy and trust. Do we have people with us when we're going through this decision? And third, I think it would be, is it sustainable? Will it create another problem tomorrow? Do I have to keep making decisions every single day, right? Am I solving today's problem by creating a new problem tomorrow, right? So at the same time, I'm very conscious that these are decisions affect the people around me and they shouldn't be abstract ones. So I would say that I'm not at all creative, but my strength is being logical. So logic kind of helps me stay fair, consistent. But of course, today leadership requires empathy, and empathy helps me stay grounded. So one thing I've learned over the years, and I did not know it was true, was that even not making a decision or an indecision is a decision in itself, right? So yeah. So delaying, avoiding, going into this analysis paralysis mode all have consequences. So it's better to make decisions that are thoughtful, that are explainable, that are kind. They don't have to be popular. They may not be perfect decisions, but they are definitely responsible decisions that you're making.
Your response definitely proves that you're a very strategic thinker, because you're talking about logic, you're talking about the foresight, and you used a very critical word, the sustainability of the decisions that we are taking, because that's what matters in the long run. Yeah.
Important.
You mentioned about this earlier, and I think this is your signature, adopting a simple and a clear approach to decision making. Let's share a bit more about it. What made you adopt this approach, and how do you go about it?
I think it goes back, or I adopt a very simple approach because I need to sell the decision to myself first. I need to connect the dots. Like I said, I think very logically. And the more layers I'm adding to it, the more complicated it's getting in my own head when it comes to decision making. I don't think the complexity of the decision or the problem goes away in any way, but I think that if we look at it as a very complex problem, it makes people harder to act upon it, right? So when things are unclear for me, I've seen that people either overthink or they disengage. So my focus for myself and for my team has always been creating enough structure, creating clarity so people know what actually matters, what their role is in terms of communication. Like Simon Sinek says, start with the why. Why are we doing this? What is exactly what we want? Because the problem that we often see is not the problem that we have to solve. We have to ask a bunch of questions before we get into that root problem. So it's kind of come from experience where I think this whole problem solving mindset that you have, like, what can I do right now to make things 1% better than it is currently, right? So go down to the basics, say, okay, it's a big problem, you're facing a big problem. What do you start with? How do you go about it? And I think that kind of helps me break it down. I don't think simplifying is dumbing things down. It's about respecting people's time and energy, not overcomplicating things. And most importantly, I believe that when things are clearer, people feel much more safer to speak up, to contribute in those environments because they know what they're doing, they know what they're contributing to. For me, that's where leadership kind of shifts from trying to figure everything out to creating conditions where others can do their best. And for that, I have seen that I need to really simplify it for myself, for my team, and even for the organizations. It's always back to the basics, or stick to the basics.
If I put this context in terms of new members who are wanting to take up leadership roles, what would be your message in terms of how do we simplify our decisions and take that jump?
I would tell a new member, and this is probably going to be an unpopular decision considering I'm in Toastmasters leadership. I would say for the first 2 years, stick to your club. Understand the foundations of Toastmasters, why you came into Toastmasters for. Get that basics out there because the club is such an important place. Even taking up meeting roles is kind of stepping up into that leadership role. Taking up a club officer role is stepping up into the leadership role. And once you feel safe and comfortable in the environment that you're in, then step out. Then you will make better decisions because you have your foundation down pretty solid in terms of Toastmasters. So while everything might look shining and bling bling and sparkly, don't jump to it until you really get your foundations down right.
Yeah, I think the club is the base, right? So
Absolutely. The most important thing, our members or guests walk into a club, and if they're dissatisfied, walk out of a club. They never walk into an area or walk into a district. They always walk into a club. That's their entry and that's their exit as well.
yeah, that's a very interesting way of putting it. It's the first point of contact,
Yeah.
and the point of exit. We have known people who are part of one club, multiple clubs, but the home club is a home club.
If you're getting things from different clubs, different kinds of things, then yes, please be part of multiple clubs. If everything is being given to you by one single club, then I think that beats the purpose.
I always feel in Toastmasters, we give a lot of focus on the communication part, though the leadership part is equally important in Toastmasters. You have leveraged the leadership part to the fullest extent. What would be your message of how can people leverage the powerful platform of Toastmasters for leadership? And how do you see this benefit not only in Toastmasters, but beyond Toastmasters?
Correct. I think I'm the perfect testimonial for that, Madhu. I joined Toastmasters because I have a bit of a social phobia. I struggle to say hello to strangers, even today. Like, if you see me in a room and it's a strange room, I will be sitting quietly unless someone comes and says hello to me. So I joined Toastmasters just to learn to say hello. But then as I progressed and I started taking leadership skills, like what I told you, the first leadership role I took outside the club was this assistant area governor, just to make friends, reconnect with my home country. I realized that I was getting a lot more from the leadership aspect of it than the communication aspect. The leadership aspect was not scripted. It's not like it's my message and I want to give it to you in my 5 to 7 minute speech. Here I had to have real conversations with people. I had to sell products. I had to convince teams. And the skill sets that I was picking up was awesome. Like, I'm an engineer. That's my basic degree, right? Keep me behind an Excel spreadsheet and a computer. I'm very, very comfortable. But dealing with people, oh my God, I did not know how to do that. Making sales, I did not know how to do that. But we had to learn all that in terms of being a club growth director, being a district director, managing teams, managing people, motivating, inspiring. And all of those skills have helped me position myself better on my CV or my resume, gotten me senior management roles. And these skills are transferable in any industry that you work. I now currently work for a company that's actually run by Toastmasters. In fact, the founder of the company used to be a mentee of mine and now I'm working for my mentee, if I could say that, right? The bottom line is this, Madhu, no one has joined Toastmasters to be a great Toastmaster or to be the world champion of public speaking. We've joined here so that we can be better in our real life outside of Toastmasters. So I think people need to take these skills out because that's what they actually came in here for.
Yeah, I think the potential is huge. And
the first time I decided to join Toastmasters is because my boss asked me to give a presentation to some of the clients, join him on a sales rep. And I said no because I was not comfortable. I told my boss I would teach him about the product and he could go and do it. And he kind of shook his head at me and said, figure out what you just did wrong. And it took me 2 or 3 weeks to realize that I was the biggest obstacle in my own career. I joined Toastmasters, and about 2.5 years later, I got the chance to join a sales trip again. I pitched a great product, got $500,000 in sales, and my boss was like, "What happened?" And I said, "I joined this organization called Toastmasters." And he said, "I used to be a Toastmasters at the start of my professional journey too, so it's there. It works."
I think we have millions of examples around the world of how Toastmasters have impacted beyond Toastmasters. Impact within Toastmasters is expected, but beyond Toastmasters also. Wrapping up this episode, Gauri, what would be your key message to members who have already taken the path of leadership or some who are wanting to but hesitating somewhere to take that next step? What would be your message for them?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and with the other members as well. I would say yes to all the opportunities that you come your way. You'll figure it out later, and there's a great support system in place. Don't follow my leadership journey or anybody else's leadership journey. You need to focus on your own journey, so please do that. And most of us wait till we feel fully confident or fully prepared before stepping up. So that moment doesn't really arrive. So take those small little steps, be courageous, just go about it. My message is very simple. Use this organization fully, stay curious, and keep saying yes to learning. You can do it. If I can, you can. So good luck.
Thank you, Gauri, for sharing your nuggets of wisdom from, as I said at the beginning, this compelling arc of leadership in Toastmasters. Thank you so much. To our audience, I'm sure you have a lot of takeaways from this session, as I have from this. We learned about their why to the bigger why. We talked about delaying a decision or not taking a decision is also actually taking a decision. Very interesting insights. Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Gauri Seshadri, for joining us. Keep calm and lead on till we meet next time. Thank you.